So in the previous video, we introduced this new unit called the mole. And chemists love using this unit to talk about things that chemists like to count, mainly things that are atoms, molecules, or ions. The main definition of a mole, we learned it in the previous video, is that 1 mole of anything, be it atoms or shoes or molecules, is 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd of whatever species you are counting. And that number, 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd, has a special name called Avogadro's number. So that's where we stopped in the last video. In this little vignette, we're going to use that definition of a mole, to do unit conversions between problems. So in this problem, we have 3.5 moles of helium, and I want to know how many helium atoms that is. We can use the definition of a mole, which is 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd, to convert between moles of helium to helium atoms. So now this relationship that is used, we can write as a conversion factor. And I know that in the way that it is written, let me get my pointer here. The way that it is written here, they have an extra digit on Avogadro's number. You don't need to worry about that in intro chem. We're going to use Avogadro's number to just 3 sig figs, the 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. You'll still get the same answer even if you use 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd, but we're going to be using Avogadro's number with just the 3 sig figs and the times 10 to the 23rd. Okay, so we can convert between moles of one species and atoms of the same species by using that definition of a mole and writing that relationship as a conversion factor. And we write it so that the mole unit is in the denominator because we want it to cancel out with the mole unit with what's given. We're left with helium atoms in the numerator, which is great because that's the answer that we're looking for. We're looking for an answer that's in helium atoms. So those mole units cancel, and so in your scientific calculator, you would do 3.5 times 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. However, you enter that into your scientific calculator. And the answer you should get is 2.1 times 10 to the 24 helium atoms. And so it's really important that you write down only the number and the unit associated with your answer. And I'm not going to be as picky with sig figs with these problems because they're going to get longer, but just to make a point here, the reason why this has just 2 significant figures for the answer is because I'm given an answer that has 2 sig figs. So the number of significant figures is dictated by the number of sig figs that's in your given. So in this example, we went from moles of helium and we converted it to helium atoms. So you can probably envision that if you can go from moles to atoms, we can go from atoms to moles using the same relationship, Avogadro's number, but writing it so that Avogadro's number is in the denominator and moles is in the numerator. So in this example, I have a certain number of silver atoms, which I've written down here. I need to get to moles of silver. So that means my mole of silver needs to be in the numerator. And in the denominator is going to be Avogadro's number. And so written that way, my silver atoms units cancel. I'm left with moles of silver, which is great because that's the unit that I'm looking for in my answer. So in your calculator, 1.1 times 10 to the 22. And then you're going to divide by 6.02. 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. Things that are in the numerator are multiplied. Numbers that are in the denominator are divided. And so doing that division should give you 1.8 times 10 to the negative 2 moles of silver. So in those two examples, we were able to convert from atoms to moles or moles to atoms using this Avogadro's number definition. We can also do calculations not just atoms, but with molecules. What if I was to ask you how many molecules of water, H2O, are in that many moles of H2O? Well, you would start the problem exactly the same way as we've done these previous two. Write down what you're given. I was given 2.4 moles of water. Give yourself some space to work the problem. Write down a blank and then write down the unit that you are looking for. I'm looking for molecules of water. And I do that because that helps me decide when I use my conversion factor, the way to solve this problem, I know how to write it so that my units cancel appropriately. So I see here that I'm going to have moles in the denominator and Avogadro's number in the numerator so my units cancel properly. So I write that equivalency as such. My mole units cancel. I'm left with water molecules in the numerator, which is great because that's what I'm looking for. So when doing the appropriate multiplication, you should get 1.4 times 10 to the 24 molecules of water. So you should feel comfortable using this definition of the mole, the fact that 1 mole of anything is 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. You should be able to use that definition of the mole in doing unit conversion problems, either with molecules like water or with atoms like helium and silver. In the next video, we're going to talk about the second definition of a mole, which is related to the mass of a compound or an element in grams.